Silence is a source of great strength. Ever noticed how the loudest thunder rolls after the lightning disappears? That's the thing about silence, my friends. It doesn't hit all at once. It builds, it lingers, it echoes long after you've stepped away. This is the storm they never saw coming, the weight of your absence, day by day. Today we're diving deep into day by day, how losing your attention makes them obsessed. Stoicism. You're going to see exactly how your silence, rewires their mind, not with force, but with stillness. But before we jump into this, do yourself a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe, because this right here, this is the stuff they don't teach you. This is the psychology they hope you never figure out. And trust me, you'll want to stick around till the end of this one. The power that silence holds, it's not just about them, it's about you reclaiming your energy. Now, hey folks, imagine this for a second. You've been a steady flame in someone's life, always there, always warm. Maybe they didn't pay much attention to it. They walked past, they shrugged it off, maybe even took that warmth for granted. But then, you snuff it out. The room grows colder, darker. Suddenly, that flame that barely got a glance becomes the one thing they crave. That's what your attention is like. When it's given too freely, it blends into the background. But the moment you pull it back, the moment you walk away, that's when the obsession begins. And here's the lie most people believe. They think losing someone's attention happens all at once. Nope. It's a slow burn, a day-by-day unraveling. It's like a quiet tide pulling back from the shore. At first, they don't even notice. Maybe they tell themselves you'll come back, that this is just a phase. But with each passing day, the silence grows louder, their thoughts spiral deeper. Your absence becomes a mirror they can't avoid. And this isn't about being heartless, it's about being powerful, stoic. Because as Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Folks, it's time to break the lies we've been told. You've been led to believe that silence is weakness, that pulling away means losing ground. But no, silence is strength. Detachment is power. You're not playing games, you're protecting your energy. You're not chasing, you're centering yourself. Every day you stay grounded in your stillness, they're feeling that shift more and more. The world tells you to react, to explain yourself, to prove your worth. But Stoicism teaches you to stand firm like a mountain while the winds rage around you. Because the winds don't shape the mountain shapes the winds. And let me sprinkle a little humor in here, because I know some of you are thinking, but what if they forget me? Trust me, they won't. Trying to forget someone whose absence hits like thunder after lightning. That's like trying to forget you ever tasted chocolate or smelled fresh rain. Impossible. Your calm, your discipline, it leaves a mark that no storm can wash away. So stick with me, my friends. We're about to walk through the day-by-day unraveling of how losing your attention flips their world upside down. This isn't just about understanding them, it's about mastering yourself. Because once you see how silence works, once you feel the power of stepping back, you'll never give your energy away so freely again. Now, if you're ready to reclaim your peace, type "Silence is power" in the comments right now. Let the world see where you stand. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. We're just getting started. Number 1, day 1 to 2. The void begins. We don't appreciate the flame until the darkness falls. That's the cruel beauty of human nature, isn't it? We overlook the warmth, the steady glow, the calm presence, until it's gone. Until the room grows cold, the shadows stretch longer, and we're left fumbling for something we never thought we'd miss. This is where it all begins, my friends. The first 2 days after you pull back your attention, the days when they tell themselves, "It's nothing," they'll be back. But something deeper is already happening. A void is opening and they feel it. Picture this. Imagine standing on the shore, watching the tide pull away. At first, you barely notice the water receding, but the longer you stand there, the farther it drifts, leaving behind cracked earth, exposed stones, emptiness where there used to be movement. That's what your silence feels like on day one, not a crashing wave, but the pulling back of the tide, subtle, easy to dismiss, but make no mistake, the ocean is never gone, it's gathering power. Now, in those first 24 hours, they might brush it off. They'll tell themselves they're probably just busy, focused on work, caught up in something. The human mind is a master at self-soothing, at explaining away discomfort. But the lie has already started to crack. That usual good morning text? Missing. That late night reply? Silent. Your steady presence, the one they expected, has vanished, not with a slam of the door, but with the calm, deliberate closing of it. And that's what unsettles them most. Here's what they won't tell anyone. When the phone buzzes, they hope it's you. They instinctively check for your name, but when it's not there, that's when the fear begins to whisper. What if they don't come back? What if they've moved on? It's too soon to panic, at least on the surface. But beneath the facade, there's a seed of doubt. And doubt, left unchecked, grows wild. Let's break the biggest lie right here. Out of sight, out of mind. No, that's not how attention works. Out of sight, yes, but into the mind, even deeper. When someone has grown used to your attention, your steady energy, they don't just forget it when it's gone. They start to feel the shape of its absence. Like a phantom limb, your presence leaves an imprint, and the quieter you become, the louder that imprint gets. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And right now, their thoughts are swirling with questions. They may not show it, not yet. They might even post something light-hearted, laughing with friends, convincing the world and themselves that everything is fine. But inside, the tide has shifted. Day by day, they'll feel it more. This is where emotional discipline matters, my friends. This is where Stoicism shines. Because here's the truth, they're not used to losing your attention. They assumed it was infinite, that you'd always be there, ready to reply, to engage, to explain. But now, you've reclaimed your energy, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. You've stopped pouring into a cup that never seemed to fill, and in doing so, you've reminded them, attention is earned, not owed. But let me ask you this. Why is it so hard to pull back? Why does silence feel like a struggle at first? Because we've been conditioned to believe that validation comes from being available, that if we're not present, we'll be forgotten. But Stoicism breaks that lie. It teaches us that our value doesn't diminish when we step back. In fact, it becomes clearer, to us and to them. Think about it. Have you ever felt the urge to check in, to send that "just thinking about you" message? That's fear talking, fear of being forgotten. But here's the truth. You are not forgotten. You are remembered more clearly in your absence than in your presence. Because absence creates space. And space, it forces reflection. So as they stand at the shore, watching the tide pull farther away, they'll start to feel it. The void, the lack, the realization that the steady flame they ignored is now the warmth they crave. Stay with me, my friends. This is just the beginning. The void is opening, and they feel it more with each passing hour. But the deeper unraveling, that's still to come. If you're standing firm in your stillness, Type, "I am the calm" in the comments right now. Show yourself. Show the world around you that you've chosen power over panic. Day 3 to 4, the search for signs. Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. But here's the twist. The answers aren't comforting. They sting, they swirl, they multiply. This is where the game quietly shifts. The first couple of days after you withdrew, they played it cool, told themselves you were just busy, maybe taking space, but you'd come back around. But now, the silence feels heavier. It presses down like humidity before a storm. The air feels thicker. They can't ignore it anymore. Now the mind gets loud. Ever watch someone scan a crowd looking for a familiar face? That quick, frantic darting of the eyes, hoping, searching, doubting. That's what's happening in their mind right now. Only they're not scanning a room, they're scanning for you. Every place where your presence once lived, your messages, your stories, your updates. They're combing through it all, desperate for a sign, a digital breadcrumb. Any proof that you still think about them, that you haven't let go. But here's the thing. When they check, they don't find chaos. They don't see someone unraveling. They see calm. And that shakes them. Because they weren't prepared for you to stand steady. They thought pulling back would be a phase for you, a temporary retreat. They didn't expect stillness. They didn't expect you to move forward without leaving the door cracked open. The mind doesn't like unanswered questions, my friends. So when they see your posts, if you even post, it becomes a riddle they can't solve. You're out there, living, steady, composed. Not sending cryptic messages, not begging for attention, not playing games. And that absence of noise, it's louder than shouting. And here's where fear takes the wheel. Are they really moving on? Did I lose them for good? Is there someone else? These questions loop like a song stuck in their head. Day 3, day 4, the questions get louder. The silence starts to sound like a statement. Let's crush a lie right here. The world tells you that the louder you are, the more they'll hear you. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Silence doesn't whisper, it roars. It roars because it leaves space for the other person to hear their own thoughts, to face their own fears. Marcus Aurelius knew this when he said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And right now, their thoughts are painting pictures of you they never saw before, strong, grounded, detached. But let me ask you, why does this stage feel so fragile for them? Why do they start to search so frantically? Because deep down, they expected your attention to be endless. They expected it to flow, like water from a faucet, on demand. The moment it stops, panic sets in, because now they have to sit with the possibility that the well might not refill. Imagine just for a second someone walking through a familiar path, a forest trail they've walked 100 times. But now, suddenly, the path is blocked. The trail ends. The familiar is gone. That's what they're feeling, lost in a space they once navigated without thought. And what's most unsettling for them? It's not the absence itself, it's what the absence implies. That you've taken back your energy, that you're not waiting, that maybe, just maybe, they're no longer part of your focus. And that thought, it terrifies them. But let's bring this back to you. This is your moment of discipline. This is where most people fold, where the temptation creeps in to check in, to break the silence, to offer that little lifeline. But not you, because you know something they're just now realizing. Attention is valuable, and when you give it too freely, it loses its power. You've chosen to step back, to stand still, to let the silence do what no amount of chasing ever could. And as they search for signs, as they comb through your presence, trying to read between lines that aren't even there, you remain steady, not out of cruelty, out of clarity. This is the part where the search turns to obsession, where curiosity becomes compulsion. But the unraveling, it's just getting started. So if you're holding that line, standing firm in your stillness, type "I am steady" in the comments. Not for them, for you, to show yourself, to remind yourself that discipline is power. Stay tuned. The spiral goes deeper from here. Days 5 to 6. The overthinking spiral. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. But the mind, oh, the mind is a ruthless storyteller. Give it silence, and it will spin 1,000 narratives, none of them based on truth, all of them crafted from fear. This is where the real storm begins. Day 5 and 6, when that simple absence turns into a haunting presence. They can't escape it now. The initial confidence they clung to, the belief that you'd return, that this was just a phase, is crumbling. And in its place, overthinking. The kind that steals sleep, gnaws at peace, and rewinds every moment you shared. Imagine being trapped in a hall of mirrors, every reflection distorted, every angle bending reality just enough to confuse you. That's what's happening inside their head right now. They're walking through that maze, trying to piece together why you're silent. Every word you spoke, every glance you gave, suddenly becomes a puzzle piece. Was that last conversation colder than I thought? Why did they pause before saying goodbye? Did I miss the signs? It's a loop, an exhausting, relentless loop. They replay your voice, they study your tone, they dissect your last message like it holds the key to your absence. But the more they search, the more lost they become. Because there's no satisfying answer in this spiral, only fear dressed as curiosity. Here's the lie they've been telling themselves, folks. I'm over it. That lie? It doesn't hold up under the weight of silence, because silence doesn't argue. It doesn't defend itself. It just is. And that space? It forces them to face what they've been avoiding, that you mattered more than they admitted. Think about this. Ever try to ignore a dripping faucet? At first it's easy, but over time, that steady drip becomes impossible to ignore. That's how your absence feels right now. Every silent day is a drop, echoing louder, filling the room until it's all they can hear. But here's where the fear sharpens. When they start wondering if someone else is hearing your voice, feeling your presence. Are they giving their attention to someone new? Have I been replaced? These thoughts aren't gentle. They aren't rational. They're desperate. And desperation, it fuels obsession. And what makes it worse? You're not performing. You're not out there posting cryptic messages or trying to make them jealous. That would be too easy to explain away. No, you're doing something far more unsettling. You're living in peace. You've stepped away quietly, not to punish, not to provoke, but to reclaim your energy, to let the silence do what words never could. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." But let's be clear, this isn't about revenge. This is about rising above, about choosing self-respect over validation. You're not reacting, you're reflecting. You've embraced the power of detachment. But why, my friends, does this feel so heavy for them? Because they never expected to lose access to your attention. They never thought you'd actually let go. They assumed your energy was endless, that your presence was permanent. But now, they're learning the hardest truth. Nothing is guaranteed, not even your attention. Here's where you face your own test, because in these moments, it's tempting to reach back, to check in, to see how they're handling the distance. But remember, your silence is your strength. You're not playing a game. You're holding a boundary. You're showing that your peace isn't for sale. Think about it like this. You're the calm in the center of a storm. They're spinning, swirling, caught in the winds of their own overthinking. But you've planted your feet, you've anchored yourself, and the stronger the storm gets, the steadier you stand. And that steadiness? It terrifies them. Because while they're trapped in the what-ifs, you've already moved on to the what's next. Seneca's words echo here. We suffer more in imagination than in reality, and right now they're suffering in a reality they built in their mind. But you've chosen clarity over chaos. If you're standing strong in your silence, type "I am grounded" in the comments, not to shout, not to prove anything, but to remind yourself that peace is power. Stay with me, my friends, the unraveling. It's only getting deeper from here. Day 7 to 8, the emotional baiting begins. He who angers you conquers you. But here's the twist. This isn't just about anger. It's about control, about pulling strings, seeing if you'll dance. Day 7 and 8 mark the shift from quiet overthinking to subtle provocation. They've felt the silence creeping in like fog, clouding their thoughts. They've replayed the past, searching for signs. But now they need a reaction. Any reaction. And that's where the emotional baiting starts. Picture this. A fisherman casting a line into still waters, waiting for even the slightest nibble. That's what they're doing now. Only the bait? It's not worms or lures. It's carefully curated selfies, those angled just right, lips curled into a smile that's a little too bright, eyes sparkling with just enough mischief to catch your attention. The caption? Oh, that's the hook. Finally choosing myself. Some people lost me when I was worth keeping, or that oh-so-subtle song lyric that just happens to mirror something you once said. But here's the truth, my friends. This isn't healing. This is a performance, a test. They're tossing emotional grenades into the air, waiting to see if you'll catch one, if you'll flinch, if you'll bite. Because even a sarcastic comment, a passive like, a cryptic post in return, it's all proof to them that they still matter in your world, that they still have influence, that your attention, though quiet, can still be triggered. Let's break the lie right here. They've moved on. That's the mask they wear. The curated feed, the staged laughter, the new people, the glittering nightlife. It all says, "I'm thriving." But beneath that, there's a whisper. Do they still care? Because if they really moved on, there would be no need to bait the hook. And let me ask you, have you ever fallen into this trap? Seen a post and wondered, is this about me? That's the trick. The uncertainty keeps you wondering, but not this time, because you know what's happening. You've seen behind the curtain. This isn't about genuine connection, it's about control. Marcus Aurelius knew this game when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's what's required of you now. Emotional discipline, the ability to see the bait and walk past it, not out of pride, out of peace. And let's be honest, this is where most people stumble. This is where the temptation creeps in to respond, to send a message, to like a post, to throw a stone back into the pond just to see if it makes a ripple. But here's the truth. Your silence is the ripple, it's the wave. The fact that you haven't reacted, that's the loudest statement you could ever make. Think of it like this. You've stepped off the chessboard. You're no longer playing the game. And while they move their pieces, trying to draw you back into the strategy, you've already won because you're not playing. And that confuses them, frustrates them, makes them cast their line again, maybe with a different bait, maybe with a more direct approach. But remember this, you are the calm in the storm. Their actions don't define your reactions. Their noise doesn't disturb your peace. You've built a foundation too solid to shake. Why is this so hard for them? Because they expected predictability. They expected the old you, the one who would respond, who would engage, who would validate their worth. But now, they're meeting someone new, someone who doesn't need to prove anything, someone who knows that peace is more powerful than a reply. And as the baiting continues, as the photos get flashier, the captions get sharper, the songs get sadder or sassier, they'll start to realize you're not coming back to play. You've chosen something else, freedom. So, if you're standing firm, seeing the bait but not biting, type "I control my peace" in the comments. Show the world and yourself that you're not here to react. You're here to rise. And remember, folks, this storm, it's only getting wilder from here. Stick with me. The unraveling has only begun. Days 9 to 10, the comparison phase begins. The mind, once stretched by a new experience, never returns to its original dimensions. But here's the catch. When the experience is you, when your presence has been felt, and your absence now lingers like a shadow, there is no going back for them. The old reality, the one where they could predict your moves, feel secure in your attention, take your energy for granted, that world is gone. And what's left? Comparison. Day 9 and 10, my friends, are when they step into the comparison phase, and this is where the unraveling gets personal. Imagine standing in front of two mirrors. One shows your reflection in perfect clarity, every detail sharp. The other, a fogsos, todzocult kep. You know which one feels right. That's what they're feeling now. They go out. They dress up, spray on that scent they know people compliment. Maybe they meet someone new, someone eager, someone ready to laugh at their jokes, to compliment their every word. On the surface, it looks like they've moved on. But something feels off. It's not the same. The energy doesn't match. The conversations don't flow as easily. The laughter, it lands flat. It's all a little too forced, too scripted, because they're comparing. Whether they admit it or not, they're comparing everyone to you. See, they thought replacing your attention would be simple. Just find someone new. Get back out there, distract themselves. But what they didn't account for was the depth you brought, the steady calm, the way you never needed to compete for their attention because your presence spoke for itself. You didn't scramble for validation, you didn't perform, you just were. And now, in a sea of noise, your stillness feels rare. Let's break this lie apart. Anyone can replace anyone. It sounds good, doesn't it? Feels empowering on the surface. But truth, some energies can't be replicated. Some connections can't be replaced by simply filling space. Your presence was never about volume. It was about depth. And that depth, it leaves a mark. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." And right now, their estimate of you is rising. They didn't value your calm when they had it. But now, when the laughter of others feels hollow, when the attention of new faces feels shallow, the contrast becomes painful. Imagine drinking from a glass of water every day, simple, pure, reliable. Then one day it's gone, and you're offered a sugary drink. At first it tastes exciting, but after a while, it leaves you thirstier than before. That's what they're realizing now. The surface-level replacements don't quench the deeper need. And here's where the spiral tightens. They don't just miss you, they miss how they felt around you. The safety, the stability, the calm. You didn't need to raise your voice. You didn't need to over-explain. You were the anchor in the storm. And now, there's no anchor, only waves. But let's talk about you for a moment. This phase, this is where your discipline gets tested. because maybe you catch a glimpse of them with someone new. Maybe you see the posts, the smiles, the celebrations. But remember this, my friends, it's a performance, and performances are for audiences. You're no longer in the audience. You've left the theater altogether. You've chosen peace over participation. You've stepped back, not because you're weak, but because you've grown too strong for the stage they're playing on. And that's what rattles them most. They feel the weight of your absence in every encounter that falls short. They feel it in the small talk that never turns deep, in the laughter that feels rehearsed, because no one else can mirror your steadiness. And the harder they try to replace it, the clearer it becomes that you were the exception, not the rule. Let me ask you, have you ever tried to replace something real with something convenient? How long did it take for you to realize that surface-level distractions don't heal deep wounds? That's where they are now, facing that truth, day by day. If you're holding strong in your lane, letting the comparison do its work without stepping back into the chaos, type, "I am irreplaceable" in the comments. Not to boast, but to remind yourself that true value doesn't chase validation. Stay with me, my friends. The unraveling only deepens from here. Days 11 to 12, the nostalgia trap. Nothing haunts us like the things we didn't say. And here's where it really starts to sting. Not in the loud, chaotic ways of the world outside, but in those quiet, private corners of their mind where your memory lingers. Day 11 and 12 are when the floodgates open. Not of anger or denial, but of nostalgia. Those little moments they brushed off, the memories they thought they'd filed away. They all come rushing back, uninvited, but undeniable. It sneaks up on them. One song, one place, one random object that reminds them of you, and suddenly they're back in a moment they thought they'd forgotten. The late-night conversations where words weren't needed because the silence between you spoke volumes. The small gestures, maybe you brought them coffee just the way they liked it, without asking. Or that inside joke that no one else ever quite got. Those things seemed so small before, but now, they're massive. They carry weight. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been hit by a memory so vividly it stopped you in your tracks? That's what's happening to them now. But here's the difference. You've processed. You've reflected. You've chosen peace. They haven't. They're still fighting it. They might even bring it up casually. A "remember that time" text. Maybe they're not reaching out directly, but posting a photo from a shared memory, tagging a place you both went. They'll frame it like nostalgia, but really, it's a signal, a flare sent up into the night sky, hoping you'll see it and respond. Because they aren't just reminiscing, they're reaching. And here's where the lie starts to crack. I've moved on. No. If they truly moved on, there wouldn't be this need to relive the past, to revisit the comfort that your presence gave them. This isn't closure, it's clinging. Because nostalgia is sneaky. It paints the past with soft colors, blurs the rough edges, and makes the memories feel sweeter than they were. But you see through that. You don't live in rewind. You honor the past, but you don't retreat into it. Because Stoicism teaches us this powerful truth. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. And your thoughts? They're anchored in the present, in what is, not what was. See, this is the part where they expect you to crack, where they think, if I just remind them of the good times, they'll come back. But that's the trap. They're pulling on the emotional threads, hoping to unravel the calm you've built. But here's the thing, they don't realize you've changed. You're not the person they remember. You've grown beyond those moments. But why is this phase so hard for them? Because nostalgia is safe. It's familiar. It lets them avoid the discomfort of now. They can escape into what could have been instead of facing what is. The fact that your silence speaks louder than any memory. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the ocean. The waves crash, the wind howls, but there's beauty in the distance. That's how they see the past right now, distant, beautiful, untouchable. But you're already walking away from the edge. You've turned inland towards solid ground. And that's what they didn't expect. They thought memories would pull you back, that reliving the moments would reopen doors. But you've closed those doors with grace. You've chosen to build, not rewind. And let me tell you, that shakes them, because nostalgia doesn't fade quickly. It lingers, it simmers, and the more they feel it, the more they realize they've been holding on to the idea of you, not the reality. So, stay firm. When the remember when messages come, when the old photos resurface, smile, but don't step back. Acknowledge the past for what it was, but don't get trapped in it. You've done the work. You've healed forward, not backward. If you're standing strong in the face of nostalgia, type "I choose now" in the comments. Let the world know that you live in the present, not the past. Stay with me, my friends, because what happens next? That's when the storm reaches its peak. Days 13 to 14, the breaking point. Obsession sets in. The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. And by day 13 and 14, those chains, they're heavy, dragging, wrapping tighter around their mind, around their chest. This is where everything they've been holding back starts to spill over. The confidence they wore like armor, cracked. The cool indifference they posted about, shattered. Now it's just them, and the weight of your absence pressing down hard, suffocating the stories they once told themselves. Up until now, they've played it safe. Hints here, subtle posts there, emotional bait cast out like fishing lines, hoping you'd bite. But your silence, it stood strong. And now, obsession sets in. This is no longer curiosity. It's not even about pride. It's about survival. Their mind becomes a loop with no exit. And the soundtrack? You. Imagine a record player, the needle stuck, playing the same 5-second clip over and over. That's their mind right now. Every memory of you, every unanswered question, spinning on repeat. They can't turn it off. The silence? It's too loud now. The space you left behind has become a mirror, reflecting every doubt they buried, every fear they ignored. But here's the truth they don't want to face. The power dynamic has flipped. The one who was once seeking, now stands still. The one who once gave endlessly, now gives nothing. And that vacuum, it consumes them. Let's break the lie they're still clinging to. I have control. No. They lost control the moment they underestimated your silence. They thought it was a tactic, a phase. But this was a decision, a choice to pull your energy back where it belongs, to yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And their thoughts right now? They're anything but calm. They're haunted. They're scattered. They're desperate for relief from the silence. But relief doesn't come. The obsession only deepens. Now they start reaching. Not always directly. Sometimes it's more bait. Sometimes it's a late-night view of your stories, the kind that lingers too long. Sometimes it's a slip, an accidental like on a post from months ago. Their actions betray them. The obsession leaks out. Here's the part they didn't expect. You've changed. You're no longer the person who would have jumped at the first sign of attention. You're not waiting for breadcrumbs. You're not seeking validation in old patterns. You've grown roots. Think of yourself as a mountain now, unmoving, steady. The storms swirl around you, but you don't shift. You don't chase. You've reclaimed your energy, your space. And that space, it's sacred. But let's be honest, my friends, this is where the temptation creeps back in. Seeing them spiral, it's hard not to reach out, not to soften, not to give them the comfort they once had. But remember this, your peace isn't theirs to borrow anymore. They have to face what your absence revealed. They depended on your presence to feel steady. And now that it's gone, they're unraveling. Imagine trying to hold water in your hands, watching it slip through your fingers, no matter how tightly you squeeze. That's them now, grasping for control, for connection, for closure, but finding none. Because you're not playing, you've stepped off the board. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." And that's what you've chosen. Freedom from cycles, freedom from games, freedom from needing their validation. And as they spin, as they spiral, the realization hits hardest. You didn't need them to close the door. You became the door. So if you're standing firm, even as they scramble, even as obsession takes hold, type, "I am free" in the comments. Show yourself. Show the world that you're not just surviving. You're thriving in your silence. Stay with me, my friends. The storm might be raging on their side, but on your side, the skies are clear. Days 15 to 16. The silent realization. They've lost the upper hand. Power over others is weakness disguised as strength. Eckhart Tolle. But when you reclaim power over yourself, that's when the game changes. That's when the mask cracks. And by day 15 and 16, they begin to feel something they never expected. The loss of control. The upper hand they believed they had. The quiet confidence that you would always circle back, that your attention was a guarantee. It's slipping away, not with a loud crash, but like sand sliding between their fingers. It's subtle at first, but unavoidable. That silent realization creeps in when they least expect it. Maybe it's late at night when the noise of the day has died down. Maybe it's when they check their phone one more time, hoping to see your name and find nothing but silence staring back. This isn't the storm anymore. This is the aftermath, when they start piecing together the truth they tried to avoid. You're not coming back the same, if you're coming back at all. Up until this point, they held on to a false sense of control. The idea that they could pull you back in with just the right words, just the right look, just the right post. They told themselves, "All I have to do is reach out and they'll fold." But you haven't folded. You've stood still. You've watched, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You've let the silence do what explanations never could. Let me break the lie right here. The person who cares less holds the power. No, that's not power. That's fear in disguise. Real power? It's self-control, it's self-respect. It's knowing that your energy, your peace, your attention are not for sale. That they're earned, not demanded. And now they know it too. Marcus Aurelius once said, "It is in your power to withdraw yourself whenever you desire. Perfect tranquility within consists in the good ordering of the mind, and that's exactly what you've done. You've withdrawn, not in anger, not in spite, but in tranquility. And now they feel the weight of it." Let's talk about their thoughts right now. This is when they start playing the what-if game. What if they never reach out again? What if this is really over? What if they've actually moved on? The questions loop endlessly because they're built on a foundation of uncertainty. And uncertainty, it burns. Imagine standing in front of a locked door, knowing the key used to be yours, but now the lock has changed. That's what they feel now. The key, the attention they once used so easily, is useless. The door has shifted, and behind it, you've built a world they no longer have access to. But let's turn this inward for a moment. This is your test too, because in these moments, the pull to prove your power can be strong, to remind them of what they lost, to send one message, just one, to feel the upper hand. But that's the old game. That's reaction. That's ego. You've outgrown that. Because real power doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need applause. It's felt. Like gravity, unseen but undeniable. You've chosen to stand still, not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself more, your peace, your progress, your growth. And while they sit with this realization, feeling the weight of the silence, wondering how they let it slip, you remain unmoved. Not out of coldness, but out of alignment. You've stepped into the space where freedom lives. Freedom from needing their validation. Freedom from cycles that kept you tethered. Imagine being the lighthouse, standing tall while the waves crash endlessly below. The lighthouse doesn't chase the waves. It doesn't bend to their fury. It remains steady, a beacon of stillness. That's you now. And the higher you stand, the more they feel the loss of your light. So, if you're standing tall in this moment, feeling the weight of your own stillness, type, "I am steady," in the comments. Let the world know, let yourself know, that you've stepped out of the game and into your own power. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.